Hello and welcome to Magic is Real. I'm Shannon. I'm your host. I am a psychic medium, and I have today with me another psychic medium who I'm very excited to have with me today. Her name is Emma Andrews, coming to us from Virginia. And I just want to say before we start that if you are enjoying this podcast, would you do me a big favor and please like, subscribe, and leave comments, even if it's just a little heart, because it really does help the algorithm so that more people have access to the podcast and know about it. And that would just mean the world. And if you have thoughts, I'd love to hear them too. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Emma, welcome. It is so fun to meet you today. I am excited to dive in. So you are currently in your office where you do give readings, and I want to know all about you. So I know that you also teach intuition classes, as I do as well. So I feel like we're going to have so much to talk about. And I'm just making sure that this is recording because Zoom sometimes, yeah, it is. So I want to start with you and when this all began for you. Is this something that started when you were a little wee one, or did you kind of discover your abilities later in life? Tell me everything.
Yeah. Well, hi, Shannon. Thank you so much for
Hi.
having me. I'm so
So
happy
happy.
to be here and to speak with you today. Yeah, my story, I never would have guessed. I don't know if you're the same, but I never would have thought, oh, one day I'll be a psychic.
Not
Actually,
at
if
all.
I knew that was an option as a young person, I probably would have been intrigued and really interested in it. When I was growing up, um, I didn't have a lot of psychic experiences like some intuitives, but looking back, I did have a really strong connection with my spirituality. I was raised Catholic, and whenever I was at church, when I was younger, I thought that praying was talking to people who had died. So I had to go to church twice a week. Because I was in Catholic school, and so we had to go twice a week, and it was boring as a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really boring. So I would just spend the whole time having conversations with my loved ones who died and hearing them talk back to me and send love to me and love to their loved ones. And Actually, I hadn't really thought about that experience until I became a medium. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had been training. I had been
Yeah.
practicing. I'd been doing it. Even when I was younger, I'd been drawn to it, but it wasn't something that felt like I could share with my community. I could share with the people in my life. It felt real to me, but it felt like if I were to communicate about it with other people, it would not be real anymore, or it wouldn't be accepted. So that was something that I kept for myself and I did within myself when I was young. And I just grew up, I was highly sensitive. I was very empathetic. I was a people pleaser. I was always focused on making sure everyone was okay. I was also the oldest of five children. So my role in the family was always helping take care of things, helping manage other people's emotions and all of that good stuff. So in a lot of ways, I was training as an intuitive in that role too. But I just had to learn how to use that skill, use that sensitivity for myself, um, and not from that place of hypervigilance. Um, so it brought me to a point when I was in college where I started getting really sick. I developed like autoimmune disease, like a lot of chronic pain, a lot of allergies. I was really miserable pretty much through my whole college experience, and I didn't have a lot of support or resources to help me with this kind of experience. I got diagnoses from, hospitals and doctors, but they were like, we can't help you with your pain. We can't help you with the symptoms you're having. So I was pretty much on my own to try to figure it all out. And that was the beginning of me going inward and realizing, oh, I have a body too. I have emotions too. I have, needs and desires and wants, as as well, and I need to learn how to be with that and recognize it. So that was the beginning of my healing journey. And I started meditating. I started learning about energy healing, doing Reiki on myself, um, and working with like alternative healing practitioners, um, to bring support and relief. And the meditation was a really big piece. And so I would meditate, really to deal with like when times were really stressful or when I was feeling pain, I would work on meditation. And after I had graduated, I was meditating one day when this like pink cloud came into my awareness. And I was doing like the non-attachment meditation where, you kind of allow your thoughts to come and then you watch them float by. But this felt so different. It was pink for one, and I'm clairvoyant, so that's a
Yeah.
key element to this is that it had a color. So it was this big pink cloud, and it was very strange because it was filled with love. It was filled with so much love that it felt weird to be in my body. It was like, whoa, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this amount of love. And it came with it a message. And the message was that everything's going to be okay. I'm so loved, but that someone in my family is going to die soon. And I was like, okay, weird thought, keep passing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of pushed it out and it came back again, even stronger and so strong that I sat up out of my meditation. Like, what the heck was that? That feels so different. And I turned to my partner and I said, this is so weird, but I keep getting this feeling that someone's going to die, but it doesn't feel scary. I don't feel sad. Like, I just feel like everything's going to be okay. Um, and a week later, my dad passed away of a heart attack.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so intense.
Yeah.
Um, actually, and I just want to say, well, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss. That's really
Yeah.
difficult at any age, but especially at a young age.
Yeah.
But also how much I relate. It's not about me, but I just want to say, like, the people pleasing, the
Mhm.
feeling like I had to be responsible for everybody else's stuff.
Mhm.
Just talking about that this morning. And also how the body keeps the score because autoimmune
Mhm.
diseases, not always, but much of the time, comes from chronic stress and
Mhm.
trauma.
Mhm.
And that's something that I think a lot of people don't even realize. It's like, what is this that's happening? And it's your body inflammation happening and your
Mhm.
body's at your cells in your body are taxed. And I
Mhm.
developed muscle tension dysphonia because I didn't use my voice. And I have
Mhm.
I've had a theme of vocal issues my whole life. So thank you for
Wow.
sharing all that because it really makes so much sense that you would have that and being so sensitive and we're taking on everybody else's stuff and we're empaths. So we're taking it on a cellular level and then it's manifesting as pain for you and physical symptoms, which is fascinating, but also not surprising. So yeah, so please
It's super
yeah,
common. It's
yeah,
super common. So many of the people that I work with are are dealing with the same stuff.
yeah.
And it's the journey inward, the journey to their intuition, to their inner voice that is the where the healing comes. I mean, that's where the healing came for me. Um, and so I'm super lucky to be able to guide other individuals, mostly women, but people, all kinds of people, on that journey of being able to come back to the body. Um,
Mm, that's so beautiful. So you were going through, excuse me. So after your father died, I'm sure you were just in so much grief that you weren't necessarily thinking about your intuitive abilities at that point. But
well, I was in shock because my father suddenly passed away, but I was
yeah.
also in shock because of this awareness that I had of surrounding his death. So right after he died, like in the hours following his death, I continued to meditate. And I would meditate, and I had this other experience, this little story that I like to share, where I meditated. This is on the way home from the hospital, and dropped into a meditation, and my dad immediately appeared in front of me. And he looked super young. He had like gold around him. And he gave me a very specific message. Um, he said that he'd given everything he had to me and for me to be there for my brothers, basically, because I had 4 younger
Yeah.
brothers, and the
That's so
young
weird. Right as you said that, I
and
heard "and brothers." It was like it was almost like,
yeah,
yeah, I
he's
feel like
passing it on. Yeah.
yes, he's yeah.
Um, and so I was like, "Wow, I'm in shock and making things up, and I have a really great imagination." At this point, I still didn't even believe that, I thought it was a coincidence that I had had this weird feeling before he died. I didn't really think it was real. Um, and then if but I kept writing things down. I would write down, messages I would get or feelings I would get or information I would get, because I believed it within me, like, I knew it was real within me, but, like, outside of me, just like when I was a kid, I wasn't quite to that point of, like, "No, this is who I am." Hi, everyone. So, um, a few weeks later, I was at a party, and an acquaintance, like a friend of a friend, came up to me and said, "Emma, sometimes I get messages from people when they die. And the night your dad died, he came to me, and I knew he came to me because I get these goosebumps all over. And can I share with you what he said?" And I was like, "Of course, please." And he said he'd given everything he has to you and that he wants you to pass the rest on to your brothers. And I was like, "No."
That's so wild.
I can't deny this anymore. It was like a slap in the face. I mean, a
Yeah.
loving slap in
Oh,
the face, but
yeah.
a little fire under my feet. So once that happened, I was actually terrified of meditating. I stopped meditating. I like It was too much. And so I took a few months, um, and I was just grieving and healing my body, taking care of my physical health. And then a few months later, one day I woke up and I was like, "I'm ready. It's not scary to me anymore. It's exciting and fun." And I think in the beginning it felt like it can feel so limitless, like a black hole. Is that kind of how it felt? Like what's there? It's so big, it's so expansive. Um, but I gave myself that time to process it all, and then I was ready, and then from that point on I was like, I want to learn everything about this. I want to know how it
Yeah.
happened, why it happened, how I can get it to support me in my life, in like the little things and like the good things too, not just like the big moments of shock or the hard challenges, but like how can I get it to support me to achieve my goals and experience the things I want in this life. So I started working with people and studying meditation and intuition and mediumship. And yeah, that led me to this point now where I'm full time working with clients and teaching intuition. This will be my 4th year running my intuition development course, or 5th year. I can't keep track.
That is so cool, and I too did the same thing where once it came online or I was aware of it, I just was like, "I'm studying this."
Mhm.
So, and there have been how sometimes people will say, "Oh, mediums are fakes, they're con artists." And to that I say, would I have spent, like, all this money and time deeply studying it if I was trying to con people? It's a serious study and you don't have to believe in it, but it's we actually study, and part of our whole sort of mission statement involves integrity and ethics and how to
Absolutely.
give readings in an ethical way. And it's not just bringing through quote unquote dead people, it's holding space for people in grief. It's if you can't connect, you give them a refund. It's if it's knowing how to word things and what they're ready to hear and what's appropriate to say and that whole thing. But that's so exciting. And So let's talk about intuition because I know that intuition doesn't have to be just mediumship. It's also trusting yourself, as you
Mhm.
said. And so you did pose a question in your email that or suggest a question, which was something along the lines of how do you know what's well, and I'll ask it in my own way. How do you know what's coming from your own intuition or the spirit world and the spirit world, your higher self? Versus something like what's fear? Like what's actually a premonition versus this is just a fear-based anxiety? Or how do I know that it's really my dad talking to me versus me making it up in my head and that kind of thing? And anything else you want to touch on that I left out?
Absolutely, and I love that you led into this question because it kinda comes right out of that story of the my initiation into this work, because that was my first question, and I had a lot of anxiety because I had the trauma from losing my dad, so I noticed, like, in the months that followed, I would have thoughts like, my husband would go to work, and I would think, "He's gonna die," and then I'd be like, "Did it happen again?" Yeah, because I just had a thought, like, "What if he gets in a car crash, and is it happening again?" Um, but I had such great support with my teachers, and they helped me so much to really understand the difference between accurate intuitive information and, sort of like emotional, mental patterning or, expression, I guess you could say. So, one of the key things, at least that I work with, and that I teach, is that anything that is fearful, any thoughts that are based in fear, are a lie. So they're not to be trusted, they're not accurate. So accurate intuitive information, it comes from such a high vibration. It's coming from spirit, it's coming from source. And so that's why it's so important for us as intuitives that we know how to uh raise our vibration, to get happy, to do things we enjoy, to feel good, to feel happy in our bodies, because that helps us to raise our vibration to get into that state where we more easily can like harmonize with that way of being. And an example of this is the story with my dad. When that intuition came through, that premonition that someone in my family was going to die, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't sad. I wasn't scared. The tone of the information was lovingly neutral. So, because really, from the higher perspective, there's no such thing as right or wrong. Death isn't bad, even though we as humans, it's not like our favorite.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. We get to, it's not the end, right? It's like the end of just like one physical experience. And we get to have more if we want. Um, and we get to keep making choices and we don't really die. So, um, yeah, there's all these higher perspectives, like that death doesn't really exist, that right and wrong, good and bad don't really exist in the way we as humans sort of think about things. So if something has that tinge of fear to it or anxiety of it, if there is also this like um tone of like rushing, like I have to do something, that's also a sign that it is not accurate intuitive information. And so that's why in my courses, the first like 6 weeks really, we're working on um, connecting with the physical body, connecting and processing emotions, like how to work through the things that get stuck in us, how to be present and love on the parts of us that kind of we can get caught up in or that can weigh us down. Um, and yeah, and then once you get to that place, once you're able to like move through things and let things flow, let your system flow, let your emotions flow, then the intuitive information, it comes a lot easier and it's a lot more accurate.
You're so eloquent. I loved especially the word you chose, harmonize with.
Mm,
So when we talk about raising our vibration, it's like we don't always have to be in a happy state because we're not going to be as a human being. But
mhm,
there's an overall sense of when you're open to the magic, the beauty, the things that are that are beautiful in this world, and even if it's just music, like you said, or taking a bath, or like giving
mhm,
yourself little moments of peace, uh, even among the chaos that happens in the world, you do. Oh, I'm getting chills. That which always happens, but that it isn't about try. You don't have to force that. Like, I have to be in a good place. I have to be really high vibe. I have to, and that's what we would call false positivity or maybe spiritual bypassing, where it's like we also
mhm.
have to have the experience of difficulty and stress and pain and all the things. But generally, if we can align ourselves with the energy, the nature, connection with other people, we tend to be more tuned in. And that's not to say I haven't given readings with COVID or with with a migraine, when I thought I couldn't do it, and it still came through because it was important enough. But,
Yeah,
anything you wanna speak to along those lines, even though you just did, but if there's anything you
yeah,
wanted to add, yeah.
yeah. Well, I loved how you were sharing about that, about how, like, the you don't always have to be happy, because the way I see it is, like, if you're present, loving and present with your body, even if your body's in pain, or even if you're stressed, or your mind is telling you lots of things, if you're lovingly present with your body, that raises your vibration. You know, if you're present with the grief you're going through and, like, allowing it to move, eventually you're going to get to a place where you have a raised vibration, where you're experiencing, like, presence, awareness, joy. Like, that's our natural state when things are allowed to flow, right? That's not to say that's the only state we should ever experience, because the way my guides show it to me is like our emotions are like a rainbow. So we're supposed to, we want to have the whole spectrum and experience the whole spectrum all the time. One isn't better than the other. But specifically for this work, working professionally as an intuitive, we have to know how to process our emotions, how to allow them to flow so that we can be clear and feel like that feeling like after you have a good cry, where you just feel like light and connected and present, more present in your body. That to me that's my goal, at least when I'm working with people and teaching them.
That's beautiful. It is, it's we're here for the contrast. We're here for the contrast. It's not like we wouldn't be here if we weren't meant to experience all of the things, the darks and the lights. Otherwise, we'd have nothing to compare it to. And
Mhm.
otherwise, why would we even come here in the first place? So I just got another chill. So actually, it's so amazing when that happens. So when what from your experience connecting with the spirit world, what do you understand about what our purpose here is? Why are we here? What are we doing here on Earth in this time and space?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that I think about a lot, especially with it being such a tough time for so many people on the planet right
Yeah.
now. So I totally would echo what you said about, like, this the experiences on earth being for learning, for growing. It's not for being immortal.
Yeah.
Or like leaving this huge, like, legacy. It's not so much about that. Like, a financial legacy is more what I'm thinking, or a legacy of power. Like, I think that's this old way of thinking about being on earth, is about like domination or power or money or immortality. When in reality, like, to me, it's really about learning and allowing ourselves to this is how it feels like for me. Like, the more that I can feel as close to my higher self as possible, like that's the work I'm here to do. And I think that's the work that most of us are here to do is like try to bring in as much of that higher perspective and love and presence as we can into this lived experience. Because and learning from the things that come, learning from the tough challenges we have or the relationships we have that are tough, experiencing the contrast or the friction in that, is also why we're here too. We're here for the challenge, I think, the challenges and
Yeah.
overcoming them within ourselves. Yeah.
So well said. I think some people have said, we're here to suffer, and we're not here to suffer, but we are here to experience challenges. I think
No.
because the
Yeah.
thing is, like, this world is so beautiful. It's the people who F it up, really. I mean, it's we who mess the whole thing up. I think, and that's the sad part about it is if we could all just get it, but if we all just got it again, then
It'd
there'd
be
be no
boring.
point. It'd be boring. And I know sometimes we choose, and we'll talk about this with other souls in our soul group. I'd love to hear your thoughts, riff on it, that we make these contracts with one another. So even if we have relationships that are painful, they're actually gifts because we chose this in
Mhm.
our lives to have this experience together. That's what I believe anyway. And that we're mirrors for each other. And especially that's why intimate relationships, you being a married person, we've all had relationships pretty much. Whether it's a friendship or romantic, and that's these people are mirrors to us that bring up our but they can bring the best out in us and they can bring out the worst or the shadow in us. So
Mhm.
anything you want to say about that, really, about our contracts with one another?
Love that. I love that. So I I kind of have I see that word two ways because um I do really see how we make choices as souls to have certain experiences. And when I'm working with clients, a lot of the time that's what we're talking about or looking at, like, oh, I can see really clearly here that you chose to have a mom that was controlling because you wanted to learn how to be empowered, you
Yeah.
know. And I also think to go off of what you were sharing, um that whenever I have conflict and I think it's outside of me or challenge and I think it's outside of me, I always try to be like, Emma, where is this in you? Because this is, when I have conflict with like, I don't know, a friend, like I look within myself and I'm like, where is this happening for me? Because this is me. There's something within me that is uncomfortable that I need to work on or that I'm learning about. What am I trying to learn here? Because I think all the challenges that we have, anything in your life that you're like, oh, this is not working out, like, oh, my relationships never work out, or oh, I can't not making the money that I want, or wherever your life is kind of sticky, um, that's where you're meant to learn to let go and really um connect in and learn a lot about, I mean, what you came here to learn.
Yeah.
But to go off of the contract idea, what I kind of my thinking about contracts is the most important thing and one of the most powerful forces that I think we have as souls is choice and free will. And I think that's something that it's so important for me to pass on to my students and clients is choice and free will. And that you have the choice to learn a lesson or not learn a lesson. You have the choice to be in a relationship with someone or not. Um, because especially in this work, like the spiritual work, it can get these like perfectionist undertones where it's like, I have to have this high vibration all the time. And I like have to do all this things I came here to do. When really, when I look at life paths and like destiny, like these kind of ideas, it's not like we have one, it's like the branches of a tree, we have we have multitudes within us and we have multitudes of potential At least that's how I see it. And
Mhm.
it's so essential for me to hit home that piece about choice and free will because um, we all have it, and embracing it is helps us to feel safe. It helps us to feel empowered. It helps us to have agency over our life, which are all essential pieces and components of developing your intuition as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so well said. I love that. It is true. That's why we're given free will. Because if everything was just planned out in advance, again, what would we be doing here? It's up
Mhm.
to us and to figure it out and to see whether we want to be better or healthier, whatever it is, or if we just want to stay stuck in these old patterns, or maybe we need to maybe we need to learn the lesson like a few times before we really are willing to do something about it. And as someone who's been an addict and gone through years of recovery, I can definitely say that I knew my spirit guides were like, you wanna learn again? Go for it, have fun. Go do it,
Mhm.
do it, do it, and I was like, "Let me just try it differently this time and just see," and that's valid. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
even my sponsor in 12-step was like, "You wanna go do this thing again? Have at it, let me know how it goes." She didn't say, like,
Mhm.
"Don't do it." She's like, "Let's just see if it changes." Didn't change. She didn't say, "I told you so." It was, "Okay, you
Wow.
needed to this is your path and you need to live it." So I
Wow.
take that stance with my friends too when they're like, "Oh, I'm dating a guy, I think he's displaying some narcissistic behaviors," and I'll go, "You can talk to me about it because I'm not gonna tell you not to do it because
Mhm.
you're gonna do what you wanna do, and I want you
Mhm.
to feel safe sharing it with me. All I can say is do your thing until it and figure it out, see what happens, and,
Yeah.
unless there's danger involved." But I think that it is very important for us to do that, and so now a friend of mine recently said I said something like about a choice I made in dating, and she was like, uh I said, I'm not sorry for I'm glad. I'm really glad I had this experience." And she said, "That's terrible. Why would you want that?" And I said, "Because that's the game, that's life. That's Earth school. That's how we
Yeah.
learn. I'm not
Yeah.
I don't think of it as lost time or
Mhm.
like I wasted time.
Mhm.
What am I wasting? I'm living, I'm experiencing, and I am grateful. And I would do it. I said I would do it again. And she's like, "That's messed up." I'm like, "No, I would do it again because I needed
Wow.
it to get to where I am right now." So I think that's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
that's one of the blocks that I see. That was one of my blocks when I was first starting out as an intuitive, and I see that a lot with my students is this like idea of perfectionism, and you really have to let go of it when you're an intuitive because I don't know what the stuff means that I'm getting,
Yeah.
and I don't have control totally over the kind of information or the answers or, it's not coming from me, so I don't have control over it. So if and also I mess up, I
Yeah.
interpret things wrong, I make mistakes, you know, that's a part of it. And you have to be okay with messing up, making mistakes, and not being perfect, especially when you're starting out as an intuitive, because it often feels like it feels weird. It's
Yeah.
like, am I just imagining this? You have to learn to just like go with it and just keep going and keep going. And what's next? What are you getting next? What are you getting next? Just keep going with it. And so letting go of that like need to be perfect or need to get everything right. I always tell my students and clients, like, mess up, make a mistake, make the
Yeah.
wrong choice. Like, have your intuition come through. That's another thing that blocks people is they think, oh, I'm scared to connect with my intuition because if I do, then I'll have to do what it says. And I tell them, no, you can like let go of that idea. Like, we want to just open up the gates so you have choices, so you have more choices. So you'll be like, oh, I can do this or I can do that. And you can go the opposite way of your intuition. You need to have that awareness that you also have choice in order to stay open. And then eventually you will be making the choices of your intuition because you'll learn, oh, things work out better.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
feels better, then you'll keep doing it, but especially in the beginning, it's helpful to be like, "I'm just gonna see what it says, and then I can still eat the candy bar, or I can still, watch a bunch of TV, trash TV if I want." Um, we need to feel that choice. That's been really important for me and for
Yeah,
my students. Yeah.
that's so important. And just so you know, I know you have a client coming up, so I'm keeping my eye on the time, but I do want to ask you about synchronicity because that is my favorite thing. All the signs and symbols and synchronicities, especially as personally as I open up even more. And now it
Mm.
happens all the time and it's just so cool. But I don't know, just talk about synchronicity because I
You
think
know
it's
what
the
my
coolest
favorite
thing
thing
ever.
about synchronicities
Yeah.
is how all of a sudden when you start living in synchronicity, it's like it's like you're a part of a team. I don't know, I'm seeing it like you're like just an actor and there's a whole, you know, team of directors and writers and producers like right behind you. Like it's almost like you're not alone anymore and you can feel it, you know, you feel it all around you that like, oh, I'm a part of this production and I'm a
Mm,
special part of this production. And yeah, and I feel this team around me all the time and I know I'm not alone and it's just amazing. It's amazing, especially being someone who um, growing up felt alone a lot. You know, I felt alone a lot, even though I was surrounded
too.
by people. I felt alone. And um, once I started living in synchronicity, I didn't have that fear of upsetting people as much or not pleasing people as much because I had connection and community happening all around me all the time. Do you feel the same way? Do you understand what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? Okay.
Even just what you just said feels like synchronicity because it was something I was discussing this morning with a friend and how alone I felt as we're both doing this self-help workbook together. We're like, what messaging did you receive as a kid? And 12 step is that. But also now I'm diving deeper and going, oh my God, I always felt alone. I always, yes. So that plus the synchronicities are just like it's too wild to be a coincidence. And that's what's so cool is it is definitely the universe, spirit, guides, angels talking back to you in these ways where I'm like, you are so incredibly clever. Like, how did you even do that? So I'll give an example, and I'd love to hear one of yours, is that I have a friend who passed away in Virginia, where, we were just talking about that in Charlottesville. And so I was recently driving for Amazon in my car because I do Amazon Flex sometimes, and I'm driving through Sedona, beautiful. And I said, "Hey," I said to him, "please give me a sign, just any sign." And the last time that we were together, we were standing out on my friend's farm in Charlottesville, out on the balcony, and there were stars in the sky. And he said, "I haven't been this happy." He said, "This was one of the best days of my life. We just had a fun day. It was like a fun, light day." And he said, I'm so happy right now. And he said, "This is my Shangri-La." So I said, "Give me a sign." Here he is. He's here now. And it said, "Okay, your next stop is 1111 Shangri-La." And I was like, I get chills. How
Wow.
did he do that? Like, how did he, like you think, but it's on the Amazon route. How did he, because there's no time on the other side, so they can pre-plan things. Things happen all out of order. It's just so, and one more is that my friend's dog just died. One of my best friends and her fiance, and oh, he was their child. And his name was Bear, and I was driving. We had joked that day. I said, you're going to get another dog. And I said, "What are you going to name her or him?" I said, "You know what, if you get a non-binary dog." And she goes, "Yeah, we'll name it Jan." And so I said, I'm driving to DoorDash and it says Bear left. And I'm like, oh, and I thought of Bear. And then I get there and there are three orders sitting on a shelf and it says her name, her fiance's name, and Jan. And I was like, that dog is, they're hilarious. And I'm like, their dog was hilarious. I'm like, he has such a good sense of humor." So yeah, I'd love to hear anything like examples or thoughts or experiences that you've had with
Oh,
synchronicity.
one that I think of a lot was really an early on synchronicity when I was first starting out this work. And I hadn't read many books. Like, I didn't grow up in like a spiritual community or family. So a lot of this stuff was new to me. And I had just learned about automatic writing. So I was sitting outside and practicing like automatic writing and channeling. And I asked, um, I don't know who I asked for, just like generally angels and spirits to come through and share a message. And I asked who it was, and I got that it was Archangel Ariel. And I didn't know anything about angels. I didn't know any of, I only knew Michael, the
Mhm.
archangel. And I was like, Ariel, that's a little mermaid. Like that was the only
Yeah,
thing I thought. I was like, that's weird. This is Angel Ariel. Like that's definitely my imagination. But I wrote it down and I wrote down her message, which was all about like um nature and animals and love for nature and being in nature and healing in nature. And later that day, I was like, I want to look that up and see if that's a real, if any of that was like comes up on Google. And obviously, that's a real angel that many, many, many people connect with all the time. And their specialty is like nature and healing. And so that was really cool for me,
yeah.
especially in the beginning, to be like, wow, I didn't even have the intention to connect. I wasn't even thinking for this specific person. I was getting accurate information that was important to me at the time.
That's so wild. I know, and I see it
Yeah.
all the time now. I'll see messages in the clouds or in the whatever it is, and it's so undeniable. And then the other thing is, and yeah, this is good. We have a few minutes. Is along those lines as well. We give right. We give readings to clients where it's intentional, and we sit with them and we get information for them. But I find, and I want to know, if, I'm sure it happens to you too, that I think people often want to know, do we see dead people everywhere? I personally don't. Some people do. It's just there's so many times now where I'm in public and all of a sudden I feel the tingles, as your friend described. And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'm aware that there's a spirit next to me because I can feel it. And then I
Hmm.
go into, who is it? Who's it for? What do you want me to say? And sometimes I don't, because it's like I'm not going to walk up to someone while they're eating dinner necessarily, especially because I'm like, what if I'm not right? What if I'm not
Yeah.
right? And they're like, okay, lady, back off. But
Yeah.
there are so many times where it just happens spontaneously, and sometimes, unfortunately, it happens spontaneously even stronger than it does sometimes in a planned out reading, where someone's coming to you, but sometimes the messages aren't as strong. But it'll come to me at times when I'm not even looking. I'm just going about my business. I'm assuming that happens to you as well, quite often.
You know, not that
Or
often,
not? Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
Well, because I think because I have many friends who it happens to,
Yeah.
and but they're not professional mediums. And
Right.
so I think there's something with that too that like so quickly from my intuitive gifts opening up, I started having readings for people and having really strong boundaries around that. Because I had
Yeah.
a few experiences when I was so excited. I was so like thrilled to realize that death didn't exist and that we could talk to our loved ones on the other side and get these beautiful evidential information. And so I had a few experiences where I shared with people who weren't open to it. And I very
Yeah.
quickly learned like, oh, this is part of the ethics, you know, this is part of
Hmm.
the boundaries is sharing with people when they ask,
Women.
you know,
Hmm.
being open about what you do. They know you're there. They know you can do it. And if they don't ask for that information, it's not worth it. It's not worth the stress on me to try
Yeah.
to get to put a message across that they're not wanting to hear. So, yeah, but I had an outlet for my intuition and I had clients all the time. So I was able to connect and channel. And then I had that strong boundary of not being in session,
Yeah.
being able to kind of turn off. But I think for a lot of people who don't have that outlet of working, then they're a little more open because 'cause they're
That makes
excited and they're like,
sense.
"Ooh, I wanna feel what's going on. I wanna talk to some people. I wanna have some tingles," you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's, I think, me and why I didn't set stronger boundaries because I was just so excited, and I
Yeah,
love getting
that makes
messages,
sense.
and the only now I've started to actually ground because I did a reading at a psychic fair recently, or a healing fair, where I brought through somebody's family member, and, it was just some bad he was into some dark stuff,
Mm,
and, took his life, and it was, like, a really kind of a dark scenario, and I actually got so sick I threw couldn't walk a straight line, threw
mm,
up,
mm,
almost fainted, got really sick, and that had never happened to me before. So,
mm, mm,
some of my medium friends were like, "Yeah, that actually that can happen, when
mhm.
it was a dark situation, it was really,
Yeah,
really sad." So,
overwhelming. Yeah,
now I do, but and that's something I think is recommended to do. I just was still in the sort of high of it all, and I'm like, "No, bring
yeah.
it on. I wanna receive it." So,
Uh-huh.
in the interest of time, I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and I know we will in the future, but tell us where to get in touch with you. I'll have links below, how to take your class, anything else that might be coming up that you're excited about and are offering.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the thing I'm really excited to share with your listeners is I just started doing a free monthly intuition practice circle. So this is once a month, like as close to the full moon as I can get.
Yes.
And it's an hour and a half on Sunday nights. So it's the third Sunday of every month, and it's totally free. You can come in. We do like a sort of a grounding somatic exercise together. And then everyone turns their cameras and sound off and goes and does their own intuition practice. So this is like a structured kind of accountability kind of space to do
Yeah.
the work that you're wanting to work on, but with a community around you.
I'm gonna do it. So, I'm so glad. Yeah,
Yay!
like because even just like any professional, we have to stay in practice. And I hadn't had a reading for a while this month, and I was like, do I even know how to do this anymore? And I did have one reading, and it came right back. But it's really important to stay in practice and not be in the real world. Absolutely, but also
Yep.
to continue to remember to touch base with the spirit world, and just stay in practice if you want to, obviously, if that's something that means something. Emma Andrews, I'm so happy that you reached out to me because
Thank
you
you.
are
Oh, there's another thing I
delightful.
wanted to share.
Yeah,
My
please.
intuition development course starts January 15th,
Okay.
and I teach it once a year. It's a 12-week course.
That's a long one. That's good.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
really awesome. You do one-on-one practice. You practice with one another, which is really
Yeah.
powerful. And it's so fun. The community is amazing. It's online, so if you're in a different state, you're welcome to join. And I'm going to pass on a code for $100 off for your
Thank
listeners
you. Okay,
for that.
perfect.
Um, and also you can click my website in the link that you'll put.
Which will yeah, I'll
Um,
have it there.
and I do sessions over the phone and in person in Charlottesville, Virginia. So if anyone wants to work with me, um, I'd be happy to connect.
Yay, that is so cool. Thank you so much, Emma. I
Thank you,
love meeting you,
Shannon.
and I'm so honored to have had you here. And really, you're so eloquent, so articulate, and have so much beautiful wisdom and insight to share. So, thank you for being
You.
you and for
Oh,
sharing your insights with me and my audience.
thank you, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me.